Apple's big event, new Macs, new iPads, and some updates. It is Wednesday, October 24th, 2012, and this is iWake. I'm Tim Chaten, and this is what's going on in the Apple world today. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of iWake. And today is a rather exciting day because I get to talk about brand new Apple hardware, and that is also exciting every time Apple does release new hardware. So today's show is going to be less scripted and me just talking about the actual event based off of my notes that I took during the event itself. So first off, Apple was kind enough to offer a live stream of the event yesterday morning. So this was available on their website or for Apple TV owners available through this new little application that popped up on their devices as the event was about to start. So Apple provided many ways to watch this event, and that's a nice change, and hopefully they'll continue to offer such a live stream in the future. And I hope this is not just a one-time deal. So Tim Cook did most of the keynote. The other presenter was Phil Schiller. Tim Cook opened with iPhone sales updates, 5 million in the first weekend, and it's enormously successful. He was then talking about the iPods and that they already sold 3 million of these new iPods combined with the other ones on the market. And he actually quoted The Verge when they were talking about the iPod Touch, which was kind of interesting that The Verge was quoted, I believe, twice during this keynote, as the reviews overall were good, but it seemed that Nilay Patel didn't quite get the iPod Nano, but yet Apple still chose to use The Verge as a source. So that's saying something, I believe. In other news, Tim mentioned that 200 million devices are on iOS 6, that 125 million documents are now in the Documents in Cloud, 300 billion iMessages have been sent, and 70 million photos have been shared through PhotoStream, the shared PhotoStream. So big numbers there. As far as app numbers, we have 35 billion app downloads total, $6.5 billion paid to developers. In the iBook store, we now have 1.5 million different titles for sale, and 400 million of those have been, and 400 million titles have been downloaded. And this is where the first big announcement came, and that is of iBooks 3, a new application for iOS. It adds continuous scrolling, that's the big thing. It also does a cool thing where it adds a new bookshelf to your app called Purchased Books. And it just shows you all your books. You're able to tap the download, and then you're instantly reading. These books are able to be sorted into shelves if you prefer to move them outside of this purchased bookshelf. So that's a pretty cool thing that was added with this latest version of iBooks 3. They also have better sharing and some other niceties. So the other thing is it supports the new version of the iBooks Author, which also came out that I'll talk about a little bit later. So next up in the keynote was Macs. We had Phil Schiller on stage to announce the 13-inch MacBook Pro with Retina. He said, as I think we all knew, the 13-inch MacBook Pro is the #1 Mac Apple makes, and it now has Retina at 0.75 inches thin, 3.57 pounds, has 2 USB 3 ports, 2 Thunderbolt ports, SD card, HDMI out, and has a resolution of 2560 by 1600, which is 4,096,000 pixels. So over 4 million pixels. Quite impressive. It has dual mics, a FaceTime HD camera, left and right speakers, backlit keyboard, a huge battery, 8 gigs of RAM, Intel HD Graphics 4000, up to 768 gigabytes SSD. Starts at $1699, which is, I believe, $500 more than the base model, and is shipping today. So that is big news there. The Mac Mini also received an update. So before we move on to Mac Mini, MacBook Pro looks like a great update. Has a bit of a higher premium for the Retina than the 15-inch model does. But for those looking for this seems like a solid machine. And yeah, once again, it's Apple at its best. So this is Apple's next generation of hardware, and it looks great. And I'm just curious when the MacBook Airs will get the similar treatment. As with earlier models, the 13-inch old models are still for sale concurrently. So now into the Mac Mini. Got some updates, nothing huge here. What it did get was up the quad-core graphics, or CPU, I should say. more RAM, things like that. It was basically a speed bump. More RAM, 4 gigabytes as the base of that. Things like that. It also got something rather awesome, the Fusion drive as an update option. So the Fusion drive is something that's going in the Mac Mini and the new iMac. Fusion drive has basically SSD combined with the hard drive. And what you do here is you have the hard drive separate and you have the SSD on board separate, and this enables the system to know what you use the most and put 128 gigs of your most used content there and use the rest for Scratch. So you have like 1 or 3 terabytes of Scratch storage, then you have 128 of fast flash storage. And it knows what you use. So if you stop using an app, it'll actually move that unused app to your Scratch disk, and it acts as one big volume, but it's just smart enough to know when things should be on it or off of it. So the Fusion drive fuses these two SS drives together and makes for a really awesome thing that takes advantage of both hardware and software. And this is a significant release of this Fusion drive. It basically adds MacBook Air-like speeds to devices with traditional hard drives still in it. Now you have to have a 128 gigabyte SSD, and you have to do this ahead of time. This is definitely an integrated solution that needs to be thought of before you buy your computer if you want it. I would highly, highly encourage people getting Mac Minis and iMacs to buy this Fusion drive at the time, as I think this will really be a big boost in performance and something I would just encourage. So iMac was the big winner of the Mac showcase today. The new iMac is an all-new design. There's no optical drive. It's kind of like the MacBook Air refresh, where it has a 5mm edge that is thinner than the iPod Touch that was just released. It is held together through friction stir welding, which is impressive technology that they're using there. No SD card on the side. They've moved back to the back of the display. It's still there. There is no air gap between the display, and the display is now laminated, so it'll look more like a Retina display, even though it's not. It has the same resolution as before, same screen size as before. It has an anti-reflective coating that was done with plasma deposition process, which basically means it's awesome, or it's 75% less reflective in human terms. Each display, this is a cool thing that they're doing with these iMacs, are individually calibrated at the factory. So each and every display is color perfect. FaceTime HD cam, dual mic / dual speakers, 8 pounds lighter, SSD onboard plus the 8 hard drive, that Fusion drive I talked about. It has 4 USB 3 ports, 2 Thunderbolt, I believe an Ethernet, and is a rather awesome piece of kit. $17.99 start price for the 27-inch model, $12.99 I believe for the smaller model. So these ship December, and so November for the 21-inch, December for the 27-inch. So not shipping today, not even available for pre-order today, but these look incredible, and if I'm in the market for a desktop, this is what I would get. It really does look like a killer piece of hardware, and I'm excited to try these out. Okay, so now on to some iPad news. This was, I guess, the big piece of the show for most of us. Apple announced that there have been 100 million iPads, that iBooks Author now has access to 80% of the high school curriculum, that 2,500 U.S. classrooms are using iBooks Author and iPads, that the big update today with iBooks Author is, this was also announced right now, was that they have portrait-only books. That these books are portrait-only. They look beautiful, like we used to have just the landscape ones that were beautiful. Now we have portrait-only books that are just as beautiful and designed for that reading experience. And they added new templates for like biographies, cookbooks, photo books. So they have expanded a little bit outside of the textbook realm with this update, which is a good thing to see. They added new widgets such as a scrolling little box, so you can have a lot of content on a single page if you want to. Fonts are embeddable, so you're able to add whatever fonts you want to your book, and those will sync over with your iBooks download, which is a cool thing. So with my iPod book, I'm going to be using some iPod special fonts that aren't included in the stock iPad operating system, so that's a very cool thing. They added, for iBooks 3, the latest update, updating in a similar vein that apps update. So when there's an update to a book, iBooks will alert you in a little update tab, and you'll be able to update your book right then and there. And so this is a much better way to stay up to date with your book. So that was iBooks Author, and I'm very excited as I'm going to be using this to publish my book. They also improved the publishing process, so you don't need iTunes Connect anymore. You just do it all through the iBooks app, which is a pretty cool thing. iBooks Author app. So now on to the iPad news. We got a surprise with this one that we actually have an iPad 4th generation. iPad 3 is no more. It is dead. It is end of life and then replaced by the iPad 4th generation with an A6X processor, double graphics, double CPU, which next gen ISP for faster face recognition, things like that. Same 10-hour battery, FaceTime HD camera, expanded LTE, so it works with places like Sprint and Australia and other countries like that. It has 2 times faster Wi-Fi, just like the iPhone 5. Lightning connector. They also announced new camera connectors for both USB and SD cards. Those will be available separately and not as a kit anymore. HDMI and VGA adapters for Lightning are also available at $49 a piece, not $29 like the prior VGA adapter was sold for, and same prices starting at $499. Surprise with this was the iPad 2 remains for sale, but the iPad 3 is end of life. So iPad 2 still $399 and available today. Now on to the big unveil, the iPad Mini. So iPad Mini is now a thing. You can hold it in one hand. They made the bezel incredibly small around the sides, but use special software to make sure that there aren't accidental inputs. It mimics the iPhone 5 as far as design, with the black model having a black back, which is slate. They improved the smart cover by having smart covers without that metal hinge, so it should not scrape your iPad nearly as much. It's 7.2 millimeters thin, 23% thinner than the iPad 4. It's 0.68 pounds, so this should be finally an iPad good enough to hold in your hand for extended period of length, for reading and things like that. It's 7.9 inches versus 9.9 inches. It has the same resolution as the iPad 2, 1024 by 768. So it'll have a slightly higher DPI, making it look crisper than an iPad 2, because you're basically having more pixels. And that smaller display, even though the resolution is the same as the iPad 2, it's a good resolution. So what that also means is when this thing does go Retina, it's going to look better than that of the iPad 4 or whatever is out at the time. They then compare the iPad to the Nexus 7, saying that it has 29.6 square inches of usable space versus 21.9 inches. That the Nexus 7 and other Android devices are plastic, thicker, and heavier. That the iPad is 35% larger, though thinner, lighter, and all those great things. 49% larger usable space on this iPad with its aspect ratio and things like that than Android tablets at 7 inches. That landscape mode is hilariously bigger by 2/3 than other tablets that are 16 by 9 aspect ratio. They also show off that Android tablets use phone apps rather than full-out tablet apps. The iPad is in a class of its own as it has tablet apps. It doesn't use phone apps, but uses tablet apps. And it was a rather fun part of this show. So this iPad Mini, of course, uses Lightning. A connector, has an A5 processor, FaceTime HD camera, 5 megapixel iSight, expanded LTE, twice the fast Wi-Fi, 10-hour battery life, and has new smart covers, and is every inch an iPad, according to these people here giving the presentation. Pardon me as I move around into a separate room as it gets noisy around me. The iPad Mini will start out at $329, which is more than many expected, but it was the rumor, and it goes as high as $659 if you want the LTE version with 64 gigabytes of storage. So same capacities and configurations as the bigger iPads, just lower in price. And so $659 versus $829 at the highest for the iPad 4. So impressive specs and hardware, and I will probably be getting one of these as my next iPad instead of an iPad 4. So I may not do this, but that is my initial intent here. Pre-orders for these devices start on Friday. November 2nd is the launch date, with the LTE version shipping 2 weeks later. And that's that. That was the event for yesterday. There was also a redesigned Apple Store online that's completely new, so check that out. And yeah, rather packed day, and these were just the highlights and some initial thoughts. The iPad mini looks really nice, and something that I'll be getting, most likely. I'll probably be getting the black version for the first time in a while. And yeah, I'll have more thoughts tomorrow. I don't want this show to be an hour long, but just give you the highlights of yesterday's show. Tomorrow's show, I'll be able to go more in depth with follow-up links and more discoveries that people have been having, things like that. So thanks for tuning in to today's show. Thanks for listening or watching. I will be back tomorrow for another edition of iWake. You can catch the show notes at iWakePodcast.com, or watch this video version of iWake and other things I do over at youtube.com/TCHATEN. And finally, I do this thing called iWake again at iWakePodcast.com/again. So thanks for tuning in. I will talk to everyone again tomorrow. Great day. Aloha.